Morning, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. As always, I'm your host, Omar, and we talk leadership in boutique retail settings. This is what we do, this is what we talk about. Our goal is to become better leaders for our teams and for ourselves. That's why you're here. That's why you want to continue to move forward because you feel that there's something missing. There's something holding you back. Either you feel that the organization isn't providing everything it can, you feel that they're not putting resources in training and development, which unfortunately a lot of companies don't do that anymore. And they wonder why there's a lack of uh, not just growth, but mobility within their own employees. So we're here, I'm here to help you find a way forward. Listen, you don't have to wait and ask for permission to upskill yourself. You can become better at what you're doing, show results, and either they can know what they have on hand and know that they got gold with you, or somebody else can find you. You don't limit your opportunities. And as a leader, you don't limit the opportunities for your teams. That's why it's super important for you to focus on training and developing your salespeople, your sales leaders. And that's what we're going to talk about. Now, for the last few days, we've talked about quite a few things, right? We've talked about some broken beliefs as leaders that we've held on to or that we've been exposed to. We've talked about flawed coaching habits, things that we should stop doing. Uh, and then I showed you the 15-minute framework yesterday or on the previous podcast, depending on when you're catching this. Uh, and today, I'm going to give you my story, right? And showing you how it works, walking you through not just the origin of it, but also how it's evolved over the years. And that's very important because it's worked not just for me, it's worked for people on my teams. It's worked for me as a seller, as a store manager, as a district manager, as a regional, as a director. Okay. It's worked for me at different levels, and I've used it in different industries as well to pretty much help upskill the people I've been working with. And that's going to be one of the hardest things is finding a system that works for you that actually works. To give you an idea, when I first started, I really didn't know what I didn't know. And that was one of the hardest things for me is to finding out what actually worked. I had a background in sales. I had worked in before wireless in the insurance industry, and I'd been exposed to a lot of different types of coachings, uh, training methods, right? It was a lot of motivational things. And don't get me wrong, there's some people out there that I find really, really amazing, right? Rest in peace, Zig Ziglar, if you guys know who he is. Excuse me. He's probably one of the best, not just motivators, but also sales coaches. And there's a few people that have uh, trained underneath him that I've listened to, I followed in the past because they give great insight. Uh, and Zig Ziglar always had a thing when it came to motivation that he talked about. That motivation was like taking a shower or a bath, right? It only works when you do it consistently. And I always take that one step further, where it's not motivation, because motivation is the end result of doing something that yields results. Okay. And that's where we have to push forward and move forward. So if you keep doing that, you're going to keep getting motivated because you're going to keep seeing results. You might see some things that, okay, I'm not the happiest with, right? I didn't hit this one. But for the majority of the time, you're getting results back. And that's the ultimate thing that we want to go with, right? Um, that's a very important thing. Thanks for the like. Uh, Now, when I first started, one of the hardest things for me was to, as a seller, right, was to keep performance and understand what I needed to hit. Because it wasn't like they had mapped out like, hey, this is a really great road for success. If you want to be able to achieve, financial success, this is what you want to attain. This is what you want to hit. It was, here's a sheet. Here's the commission plan. This is what you get paid for on these items. Go ahead, hit the goals. That's what you'll get paid. You just have to calculate that. So what I would do, and I've talked about this before. Hey, and if you guys want to go into more details, let me know. We can do a separate video, separate coaching on this one. But on the commission side, for me, it was very important to understand what I got paid. So I would set a goal for the end of the year. Like, this is what I want to hit. This is how much I want to make for the year, right? And obviously, this is back like 2010, 2011. So things were a little bit different than they are now. So I would set my goal for like 50, 60,000. And I would subtract from that goal what my base pay was, right? So the gap is what I needed to hit each month. So I just divide that by 12, and this is what I had to hit, this number. But I would go a step further besides hitting that number. It was like, okay, what is the easiest path to success for me on this? What is the path of least resistance for me to be able to hit this monthly commission number? And that would tell me how many activations I wanted to focus on, how many upgrades, how many tablets, right? When we started doing wearables, how many internet devices, how many TV sales, right? And I would break it down. And this is all right, this is what I want to hit to be able to hit this number. So this is what I need to hit, and this is what I have to hit on a monthly goal. And then I would break it down to a weekly, and then off of that, I would hit my daily, right? So I knew what I had to do every single day. And then as I got better at it, I adjusted it. I adjusted it for seasonality, right? Because obviously we know fourth quarter is always going to be more, right? We're going to typically make more in fourth quarter than we are first quarter. So I adjusted seasonality, and then I adjusted it based off the day of the week because we know certain days aren't going to, we're not going to sell as much as other days, right? Especially if you're talking about like wireless retail, or if you're talking about AV, if you're talking about appliances, understanding that allows you to know what your goals are, what to hit. Instead of this is your commission plan, this is what you get paid for each item, right? Or you get 10% of whatever, or 1%, 3%, whatever it is. Okay. It's like, all right, this is what you want to hit. This is going to be a healthy mix. Because you can just say, yeah, you make 10% of whatever. But then when you have to factor in the KPIs, right, that you get weighted on and that your performance is looked on, that's where we have to look at it for a leadership role. Like, okay, yes, they hit their goal, but they were so empty. They're so bare bones on the KPIs that it didn't matter if they hit their goals. Imagine that as the seller hearing that you did great, but you still need to work on this. They didn't do great then. If there's a but, you negated everything. They didn't do great on anything. You just told them this sucked. Your performance wasn't there. So that's deflating. So I broke that down for myself, and that's what I used. And when I became a store manager, I did that with my employees. I showed them, I asked them, how much do you want to make realistically in this role? Because they would think that, my first store location was in the middle of nowhere, small little store that was a previous good location and just had, different leadership changes. And we were trying to bring it back. So I took it over. I had a couple of employees, and they didn't think they'd be able to make that much, especially in a small little town like that. Broke it down for them, gave them a path forward to look towards, to achieve. And then they started seeing success with it. They started realizing this is not as difficult as I was making it out to be. And little by little, they started doing everything on their own and started hitting the goals that they were setting, the commissions. And that's the important thing. When they were hitting the commissions, they were wanting to do more. They were motivated to continue and to do more. And that's the most important thing as a leader. So I started off doing that, breaking down the commission plan for them to understand. And then I would help them decide what the goals were, where we can adjust, what the focus would be for the month. And then we would talk about the action items that we needed to do. So I would have them write it down so that they could visualize it. And if I told you that to develop this cost me about roughly $8,000 to $9,000, I don't think you would believe me. But I had taken so many, not just leadership courses, but also sales psychology courses, uh, mindset groups that I was part of, where I was going back and forth and trying to find something. And, at the end of the day, I had this idea of making this big old complicated what if, sales coaching book. And here's the thing, guys. Anybody can make anything difficult. It doesn't take a genius to do that. The genius, the beautiful genius in something is the simplicity of having something that can change performance and can be a single sheet. That is the simplicity of it. You don't have to go and take five, six, seven different sales and leadership courses. You don't have to pay five, seven, $10,000, $2,000, right, per course. Learn from the experience of others. Grab what's relevant and use it for yourself and your teams to be able to move forward. Now, I did that as a store manager. Almost instantly, that's what it feels like. Okay. Almost instantly, performance increased. It wasn't because I was outselling everybody. It was because I was giving my team the training and development, the nurturing that they need to understand what they had to do, how they have to do it, what to focus on, and skilling on those basic items. And that got them to improve their performance. That got them to want to do more. We're in sales, guys. When we do more, we make more. There's no like and ifs or buts about it. Okay. From there, I ended up moving out I'm originally from California, guys. Okay. So this worked in California. It worked when I was a seller. For me personally, it worked for my sales teams when I had them. When I moved to Texas, I used it with a couple different stores. It worked for them when I was running them. When I was a district manager, I brought that same training to my teams because I was told, hey, there's potential in here. They didn't think the potential was that much. They thought the potential was like maybe another 10-20%, but they just needed somebody to focus on that territory because the previous DM, great guy, he was split over a very large territory and wasn't able to give that area as much attention because they saw that there could be potential growth. And I took it over in September. By December, okay, not a lot of time. By December, the number one store I had was at the time, to give you guys an idea, that store was averaging about three to maybe 400 units a month that they were moving. December, big month. Uh, we were hitting, I think, seven to 800 units. Okay. It was huge. The thing that surprised everybody was after December, everybody was expecting performance to kind of go back to base level. Base level meaning that the store was probably going to be doing sub 300s for the month of December. It was a flagship location, so they had to have an average, right, performance level. So it was okay if they dipped under the bare minimum for that threshold. They did not. Performance was still strong. Okay. 400s, February, March. Okay. Performance kept increasing. And where this location had been prior to me, top five company nationally only for the month of December, sometimes in the month of November, and then would falter to top like 40, 40-ish, 50-ish. Uh, it was competing with the top location in the entire country. I took that location, and I'm going to talk about the other ones, but I took that location from being one employee or one store manager, I'm sorry, and about five employees to one store manager, two assistant managers, and about 11, 12 employees, doubling that location in a very short period of time. That is the beauty of being able to do transformations. That is the beauty of being able to bring something in that was simple, that can be duplicatable, that gives them focus, direction, and clarity on what to achieve and what to hit. Because once they started to see, like, this is what I have to hit. This is a lot easier than I was making it out to be. This is a lot clearer. I actually understand how I'm getting paid. Guys, when it comes, if you're a leader in sales and your team isn't performing, the biggest thing is clarity on the commission. That is the first big thing. They're not clear on what they're making and what they're hitting. That's the hardest thing for them to vision. Okay. When you break it down, you give them a path forward. It makes it easier. What made it easier for my team? I also created a commission calculator. What? Yeah, I created a quick commission calculator that helped them envision. They can just plug in the numbers. Like if I hit this, this, and this, boom. Oh, that's what I'm making. Or they're like, I'm not hitting what I want to hit. I need to adjust. It gives them that in real time. And that's the important factor to it. Super, super important for your team to understand how they get paid, for you as a leader to be able to coach and train on that. Okay. Because then you can develop the skills that they need because now they have a better understanding of why we're coaching, why we're focusing on these skills, why we're focusing on these habits. It gives them the answer to the why. Nobody wants to do anything unless they understand why they're doing it. Okay. We're not ants. We're not lemmings. We don't just do things to do things. There is a reason behind it. There is a why behind it. And that's one of the most important reasons why, for them to understand why we're doing this from our side. And then as us for leaders is understanding what's the importance to them for it. I had one guy who loved to travel. I had one guy who loved going and doing things with his Jeep. I had another one who loved photography. I had another one who was big into makeup, right? I had another one who was an artist. They had reasons why they needed and wanted to make the money. And tying it to why we were focusing on the coachings and them understanding why we're doing this for them, it took their performance to another level. All of my locations increased their performance. I went from being a location that was half the size of market, that was half the size of the average market, performing at the level of the average market. I was performing at the level of areas that were twice my size. I had more employees in my market that was half the market than some markets had between all of their locations. Think about that. Not only was I able to increase performance, I was able to push through to increase headcounts across my locations. Most of my locations got minimum about 1 to 2 employees extra. My top location got the majority of them. I moved to a bigger location, to a bigger market. Within 6 months, one of the locations that was an eyesore for the organization because it was one of the most expensive real estate properties because it was inside of a mall, a very nice mall, and wasn't performing. I had one manager and 3 employees. I ended up turning it to one manager, assistant manager. And when I left, it was 7 employees, right? On top of the manager and the assistant manager. And the performance had doubled. That is the importance of being able to do something because you can replicate that. You can take it with you to different areas. And having a system to make that as easy as possible is the beautiful thing. Because before that, the teams didn't have any direction. The DMs weren't focusing on training and developing. They weren't sharing not just best practices, but they weren't doing daily coachings. They weren't implementing that. They weren't trying to get their store leaders to be coaches, to be people that were focusing on training and developing other people. It had implemented in all my markets, not just training locations and training managers, but I was also training some of the managers to replace me. Why would I do that? Because if I wanted to take vacation, I didn't have to worry about my phones blowing up. I didn't have to put the onus on a different manager, different DM, one of my peers that was more focused on their territory than on mine. I could put somebody within my territory to focus on it, and they could take in that step, that lead, and have that communication with my peers, have that communication with my upper management so that they can get that exposure for themselves. So I don't have to answer a fucking phone call when I'm out of the country. And that's what the kind of things you want to focus on. But what if that happens and they replace me? Great, they replaced you. That means that you promoted yourself. You found a way to get promoted. Because if they didn't like the way that you were performing, they're not going to like the way that one of your managers would be performing. And that's kind of the onus that a lot of people don't realize. As a district manager, your goal is to get replaced by your people. Be able to have a bench of people being able to replace you. That's the most important thing because then you don't have to worry about, am I doing things correctly? Is my team going to be on track for performance? Because you're doing things in a manner that's moving everybody forward, including yourself. That that is the shift that you can get when you have a system in place, when you start focusing on doing daily coaching sessions, on getting your store leaders, your store managers to actually do store sessions and do coaching sessions when they're doing it. Instead of, well, I gotta focus on operations and that's it. I we gotta do this quick coaching. I need you to sign this document. If you don't hit this again, right, it's gonna be another write-up, and then the third one's gonna be your final, and then you're fired. Coachings are not write-ups. I need y'all to understand that. If you're a sales manager, a district manager, regional director, get that through your head. Coachings and write-ups are two separate things. They are not the same and never will be. One is training, developing, skilling your people up so that you can have longer tenure. You can actually have a fucking culture in the organization. The other one, you're wondering why you're losing so many people. You're wondering why I just can't find anybody that wants to work. I just can't find anybody that has the it. No, you're just wasting everybody's time by not focusing on training and developing. That's not what you need to do. That just shows your disarray. It shows you're a company that's typically a house of cards. If one month you guys don't hit, it could potentially be the last month. Okay. And that's what you want to avoid. You need to focus on training and developing people. And when you do that, the performance will follow. And when the performance follows, then everything follows. In the wireless world, that means you're hitting your VABs. That's one of the most important things. If you don't know what VABs are, leave a question, right? And I can go ahead and answer that question. Uh, but that's the important thing. And listen, guys, when you're doing coachings, it's just like when you're doing drills in practice for any sport. Kobe, MJ, Tom Brady, they didn't wait for game day to start putting their coaching sessions into practice. They practiced the basics over and over again until they didn't have to think about it. It was second nature. That's what we need to do when we see our people. We need to coach, train, and develop them so that they don't need to think about it. They can just jump in and start performing. They have an understanding when the conversation shifts. Okay, this is what we do. When a customer walks in the store, this is what we do. It's not, yeah, when a customer comes in, just make sure you greet them, say this, and boom, you're good to go. No, they're not good to go. That's why I'm not a fan of 8-hour training sessions because you're throwing so much information at them at once that when they go to try to implement it, it is so much at once. And you're going to come back and say, oh, yeah, you're just going to get it with practice. The more you do it, the more you're going to get it. That's not how that works. You have to, yes, showcase it, talk to it, showcase it, train it, develop it, but you need to guide and mentor. And the thing when you're using something like this is that you have a section that focuses on visualization practices, and the visualization practice allows you to run more drills consistently. It allows them to run through those interactions and actually feel like they're doing it in real life, and they walk through the process. We don't walk through the entire sales process. We walk through the process that we're having the most issues with. So when they're starting off, the most biggest thing is going to be probably somewhere in the beginning between the greet and the discovery questions. So we focus on that section. And then we can focus on the other ones behind it as it comes along. But typically, if they can just do that well, the other parts start to really answer themselves and really start to come to fruition for them. And because they're getting quick wins, they're able to do it easier. They're able to do it faster, more consistently. So it brings down that learning curve. And that's the most important thing. When you reduce the learning curve, especially for new employees, it means that they can perform better at a faster rate, less days. And for veteran employees, it means that it's just a small shift that changes their performance and they start to see the results faster. Well, Omar, you probably replaced everybody in your districts. No, I went in with the sole purpose of not replacing people. I didn't want to hire new people. I fucking ran the recruiting department for the company nationwide before that. I know how much of a headache it was. But I also knew focusing on training and developing would mean I didn't have to worry about hiring as many new people. I hired a lot of people because I had a bunch of positions open up. Because, yeah, we need you to put five more people in the location. Yeah. It was like that. Okay. And you might be thinking, well, that was probably like during a really good time. No, it was during a time where traffic nationwide, not just for our company, but for our specific industry, was down over 20%. So not only was I selling more through my teams, we were selling more with less foot traffic. And that's the magic of how that works. Because I gave a damn about my team's performance. I gave a damn about them as individuals. I wanted to make sure that they could achieve what they wanted to achieve. And I took it personally for them to make their commissions. When I first started, when they couldn't make commission, they were struggling to hit commissions, I took that personally. Because if they're not succeeding, then I'm not succeeding. I'm not doing what I need to do as a leader. And that's where you have to take it. It's not, well, yeah, it's a job. Yeah, it's a job, but it also provides a livelihood for people. So you have to give a damn to make sure that they are performing because you don't want them to not get a commission. You don't want them to go without getting that extra chunk. Okay. That's the important reason behind it. Now, if you're wondering, you know, how can I get my coaching up? How can I upskill my coaching? How can I get my team's performance to increase without having to do a bunch of crazy stuff? It's easy. Okay. It's not that you need better salespeople. You need a better way to coach the ones you already have to develop them. And if you're wondering, hey, Omar, how can I do this myself? It's as easy as being able to grab this if you want to get started right away. The link's in the bio, it's in the video description. Grab it for yourself. Start using it right away. Don't wait for it. Okay. And here's the thing, guys. When you start taking the first step to get your people to become better, you also take the first step to make yourself a better leader for your team. You start to develop yourself in ways that you didn't think possible. And your team will be very happy about what you're doing. I've said it before, you're not your team's best friend. It's okay for your teams to not like you from time to time. It's going to happen. There are going to be changes that happen in the industry, in the company that we have to go with the flow on it. And we, as district managers, as regionals, are the mouthpiece of that information. So yes, there are going to be times where they're not going to be happy about it. I've been on the blunt side of multiple pay plan changes. But I also was the one that came up front, let them know, and also gave them a way forward. These are the changes. This is how we're going to make sure that we're still hitting what we hit and that you're still making the money that you're making. Because guys, remember, my whole onus is I want my team members to make more money while working less. And that is my goal. I want you to make more money and work less. And this is how we're going to focus on it and do it. It makes the coaching conversation so much easier to bring forward. It really does. And you can steal that. You can use those if you want. Okay, if you're having trouble getting your people on board with coaching and trainings, let them know. My goal is I want you to make more money and I want you to work less. And you're going to be surprised at how fast people will jump on board when they start seeing it's not even big results. When they start seeing quick wins with the small changes that we're doing, oh, they're going to want to continue to do that. They're going to want to continue to move that forward because they're seeing those results faster. And that's where the success lies in. They can actually see the results. And that's what we need to do. So, tomorrow, we're going to wrap up the week with the truth that no one wants to admit, right? If your team can't win without you standing over them, you don't have a team. You have a dependency. And as leaders, we're going to fix that. All right, guys. I want to thank you for your time in joining us today for another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. As always, I'm your host, Omar, and I'll catch you on the next one.